Fish have fed me my whole life, I can give him time for me to give him a little back. What he said, he's in lots of big, done lots of videos all life, that the fish fed like, I'm gonna feed the fish, I said,
All right, we're gonna call the meeting to order at 6:02.
Everything.
Yeah.
Tread lightly, she's a troublemaker.
Yeah, quorum with like 4 board members, yep. Any adjustments to the agenda?
There are none.
Any public comment? Can we get approval of the minutes from the June 14th meeting?
Need a motion for approval of the minutes from the June 14th meeting.
Second.
Motion in a second. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Minutes have passed. On to Director of Finance and Communication.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the summer and your time away. I'm gonna go through a lot of just quick bullet points. Interrupt me anywhere along the way, but I'm just gonna keep it moving. The auditors were here the last week of July. The audit went well. We have a couple of loose ends, not anything significant. And we anticipate that will wrap up this fall. And then they will do a presentation of the draft audit report to you sometime probably most likely in November. But just wanted to let you know that that is a responsibility of the school board, the superintendent, and this committee to ensure that an audit is done. I will say, just for your information, there's a lot of school districts right now that can't obtain an auditor because there's lack of auditors. And there's a lot of audit firms that are cutting back their audits. So there's a real struggle going on, as there are in other industries right now. So we're fortunate we have a good firm. We have a good relationship with them, and we get it done timely. So just wanted to let you know that. Operationally, we are ready for the start of school next Wednesday. We're wrapping up in a few buildings, especially the high school, where we had a lot of projects, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So that is well on its way for the start of school on Wednesday. So we're well positioned even with all the projects that we had going on. Hard to believe, but we are at that time of year for plowing contracts. Last year, we communicated with several companies, did 1-year quotes and bids. We're happy with the level of service with most of those companies. We are going to change one company that we've been using at 2 of the schools and not use them this year. That company does know that. We told them that right after the winter. I did bring that to you right around the end of winter, early spring last year, to let you know that that's the avenue we were going to pursue. We are getting pricing right now for 3 years from each of the companies that we're dealing with. And we are in negotiations and discussions, I guess is a better term, with those companies. So once I know more about that, I will bring that to you. I do want to give a big, huge thank you to our custodial maintenance and grounds crew, as well as the finance team. It was a very, very busy summer. We'll talk about summer projects here soon, but I just wanted to publicly thank them all. The finance team had a lot on their plate with the audit, the wrapping up of a fiscal year. Right now, they're very deep into onboarding all of the new employees for the first contract pay in September. So that is becoming really a strong focus right now, and there are a lot of new employees. And then from the operations team, they just have done a great job all summer long. So I just want to thank them for all of their hard work. With the committee's approval, we don't usually have an election of a chairperson at the first meeting because we may have new board members. So if it's the tradition of the committee that at the next meeting, we would have an election of a chairperson for this finance building committee. Is that okay with the committee members? Do you want it on the next agenda? And is that all right with everybody? So I just wanted to seek your input on when you would like that, if the next meeting works, or if you'd like a different process.
Whatever you think is best for your life.
Wes, you okay with it at the next meeting?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So I will make sure that's the first thing on the agenda after quorum for the next meeting. The 2 electric buses and the 2 chargers that we talked about most of last year. We were at the point when we broke for the summer break, that we had been approved. We were, had the quote for the buses, which would be no financial impact. There would be a slight financial impact. I say slight. Some financial impact. I went over those numbers with you. The committee approved moving forward with that. Discussed it with the board, notified them. We are still moving forward with that. We're waiting for the chargers. The chargers have been ordered, the buses have been ordered, and we're getting close to getting ready to have the electrical put in. So that's moving forward. I don't have any changes in prices or anything from what I gave you the last time. I believe that's all gonna be right in line with what I provided.
I do have a question on that. Nobody likes a what if, but what if these buses just turn into a nightmare and they turn into a money drain and a money pit? Money has been given to us by the federal government, so it's not really costing us anything. But what is our position? I mean, if we were to decide to just sell the whole thing, do we have to own them for a certain period of time?
We would have to get in touch with the EPA, who the grant is through, find out what their disposal procedures are, what percentage of proceeds are going back to them, which is usually around 90% on most grants. I don't know the specific amount on this one. Excuse me. So I wouldn't want to be quoted. Typically, a school district is allowed to keep a certain amount of an administrative overhead cost to that, usually a 5 to 10% range. The rest would go back to the federal government.
We'd have to be really careful anytime we receive federal funds,
Exactly.
purchase something. I'm certain that there are likely, through all the different grants and things that happened through COVID, that there are likely people in this country who purchased things and then sold them after the fact.
Yeah.
I would never.
No,
do that. We'd be in trouble.
but if it became a financial drain for us and it was obvious, I mean, I wanna know how stuck we are.
And at that point, then Norm, I would come before you. I think there'd be a couple options. We keep them and we just don't use them because then they become salvage. I'm not sure that's the best beneficial use of the money. Or you then contact the federal government on the other end. So you're either keeping them, you're donating them, which then has implications federally, or you sell them, which has federal implications as well. So we would step by step walk through that process, provide that information to you, make a decision how we would then want to approach it.
Good enough for me.
It is a good question, for sure.
What's the lead time on the buses?
Last I heard from the buses is that they were going to be probably fall into winter. So I'm saying at this point, another 3-4 months is what I'm anticipating.
Do we have drivers that are gonna know electric buses?
They're gonna be trained on them. So the bus manufacturer, which is our current bus company, is Datco. They would provide that training.
Be able to put the electrical stuff in now.
We're doing that right now. That's what I'm saying. The electricians haven't done it yet, but we're preparing for that in the next probably 4
So it'll
to
be done.
5 weeks.
It'll be done before winter.
Yes, definitely. And at the same time, we're kind of doing 2 things at once. The storage building under ESSER 3 is also going down across from where the charges are in the stadium complex. Just as you go through the stadium gate is the location. So we're running conduit for that at the same time that we're hooking up the bus charges, so we only have to do that project once. So we're gonna dig up what we need to, get power to the charges and get power to where the building is going, the storage building simultaneously. So that that's all rocked in, ready to go. And we only have to incur that cost once.
We're running internet as well.
Nope, that's gonna be a separate project that Shane is looking into under E-rate. For the stadium.
Well, I meant at least out to the storage building, so it was that much closer to the stadium.
We haven't because the route we're going is from a transformer that's at the stadium. We are gonna run extra conduit to that building. Because conduit in the grand scheme of things is relatively inexpensive. So while we've got it dug up, we typically run an extra conduit on almost any project we do. And depending on the size, like this size, we would run one extra conduit for needs down the road. Which could then be internet if we really need it. Any more on that? We did get our rates for the nutrition program for fiscal 24 for the now current year. We're anticipating our lunch is gonna go down 8 cents from $4.41 to $4.33 per meal. And breakfast is actually gonna go up 2 cents from $2.26 to $2.28 per meal. You'll see it in the audit report. We're not gonna go over the details of it tonight, but the nutrition program did do very well last year from a fiscal standpoint. And the primary reason is rates is part of it. But that particular department, with the structure in which we get a flat amount per meal served, whether it's coming from the federal and or state, really is about quantity served. And they really did a great job last year on being able to promote the program, to be able to serve meals. We as a district have a certain amount of costs, labor costs and overhead costs that's fixed. Whether we serve 100,000 meals or 200,000 meals, there's a certain amount of labor cost that we have regardless. And you don't know on a given day how many are going to eat breakfast or lunch. Obviously, food cost is more of a variable cost. It's going to change with how many meals we serve. So the goal overall with that program is to feed children, provide nutritious meals for children, and the more that we can do that and increase, it's a win-win. It's a win for students and it's a win fiscally. So that's the goal. And I think it worked real well last year. I did give you a handout. I asked Vanessa to put something together for summer meals. It kind of looks like this 1-page piece of paper. She got a tremendous amount of positive feedback. And I asked her to pick some of the most impactful ones that she had. I also wanted you to know that how many meals we served for breakfast and lunch. So they did a Monday, Wednesday, Friday meal service. So Monday and Wednesday would be 2 breakfasts, 2 lunch to cover Monday and Tuesday. Same on Wednesday for Wednesday and Thursday. And
This was for the summer?
This is for the summer.
Wow.
And then they would provide meals on Friday to cover Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I asked her what the negative feedback was. And she said, I didn't receive one negative comment back from parents or the community about the program.
Nice.
So I didn't want you to think we're jading, so to speak, this handout. I wanted it to be representative of, if we had received negative, I would have asked her to put some negative comments in there as well on how we could improve the program. It also, I will say, brought in a lot of money. The summer reimbursement rate is much higher than the regular school year rate that the state and federal government provides. And so that also is a win-win. We're feeding a lot of families and at the same time doing it in a fiscally responsible manner. So my hats are off to Vanessa and her team. She had a lot of very dedicated people who spent the summer cooking and providing meals over those summer months. So that was a real good report. I did want to notify you, I think Steve did briefly at the last board meeting 2 weeks ago, we did have water damage at Lyman Elementary School due to a failure from the roofing contractor on a roof drain during a major storm on a Friday night. I just met with the adjuster down there yesterday. And we were very fortunate. Steve, I think there's a picture somewhere of you with your squeegee brush, squeegeeing water. The reason that we didn't have a real significant costly remediation to that is because of the reaction time. Staff started moving water, sucking up water. Really getting the water out as much as possible. A couple hours later, Serpro was there. They were there most of the night. Most of the damage we had is we had a fire alarm system. One of the panels, one of the more minor panels was right under the leak that had to be replaced. A little bit of carpeting, most of the carpeting was able to be salvaged. And what Serpro does is they have sophisticated equipment which tells and monitors through the whole process what the water infiltration, the moisture, and other types of things that you can imagine that water would create as potential hazards. They have the equipment for all that. This is starting with our insurance company. They will subrogate because the roofer is the one responsible. He clearly admits it's his responsibility. So they will subrogate against his insurance company. And so there will be no cost to the district on this. But I do want to commend everyone who was down there and really worked on this, because this could have been real catastrophic if it hadn't been acted upon as quickly as it was. So thank you to everyone who was part of that team, the two custodians at Lyman, Cindy Pellerin, Steve. Really thank them, Serpro, our flooring company that we've used for a long time. They were right on the spot as soon as Serpro was out of there. They were in there replacing damage. I want to thank them because they were immediately responsive. They dropped other stuff they were working on to try to get that school up and going seamlessly as possible. So I just wanted to let you know about that, but also thank those people involved.
Is there anything damaged that's not gonna be usable?
There's very little. There's a few books and things that will go through insurance, but it was really minor in the overall scheme, Dominic. So yes, there is, Cindy did a list. That's with the insurance company as well. But in the overall scheme, this thing could have been a lot worse, and there was very little on that side as far as furniture, and school supplies and books. Did receive a phone call that I want you to be aware of, just a day or two ago from a person, in Lyman who is close, as he states to me, close to closing on the land that is owned by someone else behind the school in Lyman. He wants to meet. I will meet with him probably in 2 or 3 weeks. I set a date. I don't remember exactly when, just for introductions. We really need to work out with that individual, the use of the road.
Is he developing that area back there?
His comment to me is he's going to put 2 residential houses, one for each of his sons.
He's not looking at
But
developing.
he is a developer.
He's a developer, yeah, okay.
So I have questions and I don't have answers for you yet because literally called 2 days ago and he says he's not doing anything at the minimum until spring or summer of next year. But I do want to meet with him, kind of get a flavor, walk the property, walk some of our risk and concerns, where it's located.
Just in on the left is an old cemetery right there that could be overlooked quite easily.
Yeah, he's further down, so if you keep going through to the end of that road, straight ahead down Schoolhouse Lane, at the very end, and keep going straight into the big field behind. So,
Behind Lyman Elementary?
yep, so keep going down Schoolhouse Road, keep going straight.
I used to run through those woods all the time. I don't remember a field. That's.
I'm sorry, the property,
Okay.
property. I don't mean it as an open field, I mean as land, land.
Land, okay. Yeah, no, I know those woods very well. I just wanted to make sure that little cemetery, everybody sees it.
Yeah, that's right on the main road. That's, no,
No, there's another one in.
oh, further in.
Yeah, right where the roadblock is to go back there.
Side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after the roadblock, just a little ways in on the left.
So I just wanted to let you know that. I don't have any more information at this point other than what I just shared. I'll meet with him. We'll talk. This is going to at some point involve legal counsel because the town had called me probably 3 or 4 months ago, asking some general questions about the road. So I'm assuming they didn't disclose at that time why. I got some information there. That deed on the road has some clarity that needs to be resolved about that specific road, not our property as far as where the school and the playground and all that is, or where the parking is, but the road itself.
It's an abandoned road. I mean, it was named at one point in time.
It was
It
named
comes all the way
Peachtree
out.
Lane originally.
It comes out on Kennebunk Pond Road if you follow it.
So that's news. I don't have more information yet, but that is going to involve more research as well as meeting with the prospective purchaser. Similarly, recently I received a notification from the Town of Alfred Planning Board in regards to Mountain Road. There's an individual who's approached the planning board asking to build 2 houses. As part of their process, they asked me to fill out a form as far as the potential impact of any development. I use the word development loosely because in this case, it is 2 houses. It's 2 residential houses. I did talk to the code enforcement officer for Waterboro. Got more information. I did return that to them, indicating that there could potentially be some impact. And I described to him the impact really determines who's gonna own the property, how many children they're gonna have that are gonna come to school, and if there's any level of special needs or other types of needs from those students who could potentially attend our schools.
Colin, did you mean the Alfred Code Enforcement versus Waterboro when you
Yes.
just said Waterboro?
No, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Alfred.
okay.
Yes, sorry, I
No,
apologize.
no problem. No apology needed.
What,
Um,
what are they building? Were they?
2 residential houses. So I did return that form. That's in their planning process at this point with the town of Alfred. I don't anticipate that's gonna turn into more than exactly what it's been described to me as, but I did wanna inform you of that as well. I know that was long-winded, but I had a lot that I really needed to catch you up on that isn't on the agenda specifically that are kind of quick bullet points to go through.
Anybody have any questions? I think everybody has seen the warrants. Any questions that anybody saw in the warrants?
Do you all have the link to the warrant from last year as to where the warrants are located and how you can access them before the meeting? Okay. I just wanted to confirm because it's a new year and if you lost it or something else, I can certainly get it to you. If you don't have it, just email me. Happy to send you the link to that, but that might help as we go through the year if you want to look at them ahead of time. As soon as Steve signs and I sign, then Becky posts it to that link. So those are available for you.
So we will accept those as written. Moving on to the financial report.
I gave you a 1-piece handout on the final financial report for fiscal 2023. On the revenue page, you can see that it really played out exactly as it did all year long. In January, February, right up through June, when we looked at this report, we kept saying that pay to play and ROTC would be under budget, Medicaid would be under, and that other revenue would be over. And that is exactly how it played out. Revenue exceeded projections, as you can see there, or budget by $347,843. That was trending exactly as we expected. On the expenditure side, couple of things that you'll notice is the encumbrance column or encumbered amounts are 0. That is because at the end of the year, anything we've encumbered, which means we've established set aside for the rest of people's payroll, their benefits, anything we had a purchase order for is closed out. So anything we didn't buy doesn't get charged to fiscal 23. And employees' wages and benefits get accrued at the end of the year in the accounting records and get charged as an expenditure. So this is a true picture at the end of the year of by article. How we compared, I would say that the trending really did follow pretty closely to what we were trending during the springtime and what we were looking at for reports. The only article that went over was system administration. And I'm going to explain that. We had some very significant legal bills in May and June. Things that I think the board was pretty much aware of from reports the superintendent had provided without going into details and confidential information about those. And that trended more than what we expected. It only went over by 16,254. The board in its June vote authorized the superintendent to be able to transfer within state statute up to 5% of a budget category. If something went over, I described that to the board each year when that gets presented as during the audit process, if something comes up that we're over in an article that this allows and that I would report back to this committee if that were so to happen. So you're seeing that tonight. You will also see it in the audit report that particular article, even though it's over, still is well within the authorization under state statute of the 5%. So at the end, expenditures were under budget by $4,116,000. Last year, we had projected that we were going to utilize $3 million of fund balance. So on the first page, you can see the revenue came in at 45.8 million. And the expenditures were 44.4 million. So roughly, $1.4 million of money that will be added to fund balance for fiscal 23. That will then be part of and parcel of this committee's work during the budget process to say, okay, we added money to the fund balance in fiscal 23. You're going to ask me, what is the fund balance when we start the budget process? And then you'll make decisions as a committee of how much of that fund balance to utilize. For tonight's purposes, one is explaining where we ended the year, why we ended the way we did, and then saying, okay, we added to fund balance. I described how much we were adding. It's a good position to be in. It's a position in which this district traditionally has not just gone and spent money like some districts or some government agencies do to try to spend budgeted money. So fiscally, it's going to turn out to be pretty much in line with what we expected for our fiscal year. We knew revenue was going to be over. We knew we had some categories in expenditures, especially Article 1 and Article 2, where we were going to be under budget by quite a bit. And that is how it turned out to be. I don't want people to think that, well, this is just money and where does it go? Then it goes into fund balance, and that's part of the evaluation of how much fund balance do we use in the fiscal 25 budget in order to reduce taxation. And you're all on the committee long enough to understand how that works in that process. So overall, very good financial report, good fiscal year. I think the audit's going to turn out very well when you see that from what I know right now. So all good news on the financial side.
Any questions about that? All right, moving on to the annual tour of district facilities.
So the administrative team toured all of the facilities. You want to speak a little bit about that to the community?
I mentioned it to the board last meeting. We, last Thursday, we got all of our admin on a bus. We started, well, actually we did the east, then we did the west, then we went to Lyman, then we went to Alfred. Each place we went to, administrators would give a tour and talk about particular highlights. We then stopped and ate lunch at a local restaurant in Shapley. Went on to Shapley, went to Lyme, went to the elementary school, the middle school, and then down to transportation. So we toured 9 facilities. Tim was present for that. You want to add anything additional?
The only thing I would add is we also had an opportunity to take a couple of variant routes off the direct routes so that all administrators could kind of see some of those tricky spots and places that buses either have to navigate in or out of, or areas where a lot of kids congregate, where there's a large pickup site versus small pickup sites. And I think that gave any, you know, not just the building perspective, but the community perspective, and that just that vision from town to town and building to building from an administrative standpoint of what our kids experience on a daily component of their schooling outside of the actual building life. And what that needs to look like, and a perspective of what that may look like, say in the wintertime when the weather's not the greatest, or early in the morning or in the afternoon when the sun starts to rise a little bit late or set way too soon. So that was, I think, an important component too, I think.
I thought it was well received. The day before, we were in this room as an administrative team and looking around the room, including myself. 12 of the 20 administrators in that room during that meeting were either new to the district since I arrived in July of 21 or in new positions in the district. And many folks had never been to all the surrounding areas. So they got a better appreciation for kids that might live in some of those areas and the time it might take to get to the high school or to the middle school. Or the time it might take a parent who might be working in a location not in the community and having to get out to some of our schools. So I think it was pretty well received and gave folks to kind of an opportunity to talk about some neat things in their buildings.
And the transportation director joined us on that as well, and I think that was an important component too. So we were able to have those good conversations as we rode the bus. It was good, it really was.
We're gonna do this as a board as well.
The way the board typically does it, but we could do it differently. I think it might be hard to do it the way that we did it because we're so short on buses, but you want to explain how we've done it in the past?
So how we've done it is, finance committee certainly, then the invitation is offered to the board when Dom reports out from the finance committee. We certainly want as many board members as possible to join on whatever date you're gonna choose tonight for us to go. It's usually a day-long thing. Folks can join when they want because we have a defined schedule of when we're gonna be where. Unlike admin where it was kind of a quick in and out, this is really an opportunity for you and board members to see the schools, for us to be open to board asking questions, learning, questioning why we do what we do or why things in a school are the way they are. And to really then look at the things that have been done over the summer, the things we talk about in this committee. I gave you a handout tonight, which was the handout I gave you back in the spring and early summer before we broke up the major things we do. When we do the tour, I will give a much more detailed list for each school of things for you to see so that you understand, being on this committee, what's been done, the things that we said we would do, and maybe some that we haven't finished yet that we said we would do. And transparency, openness about that. And really spending about half an hour to 45 minutes per school to see some of the key areas that I think the operations team and us in the development of the budget want to show and bring accountability to, but also hear from you and say, what do you want to see within each building? You've heard a lot of projects, whether it's through the budget. We're going to talk about ESSER, talk about revolving renovation money. So if we show up at a building and you say, you keep talking about masonry with revolving renovation money, what did they do? I don't see anything different. Question that, ask that. That's the goal.
You have dates in mind yet?
I've got dates that Ben and I can't do, but I wanted to be open to what you guys wanted.
Let's pick those days.
You're more than welcome. So I would say that if you don't want anybody there and you want to do it yourself, that would probably go quicker.
So what dates don't work?
11, 18, and 20 of September.
Are there,
So I don't know what week you want to do. If you could narrow in a week that works for folks better than another week, then we can kind of narrow in a date or a day of that week from there.
then are you guys thinking you're gonna be able to do this?
I can, as long as it's not the week of the 11th. I'm on a business trip to Houston that whole week.
I do have a new position that I have taken advantage of. I maybe have to skip the first one and the last one. But other than that, any day is fine.
What were the dates?
Well, the 11th, 20th, and 18th and 20th are dates we can't do.
And Beth is not available the week of the 11th.
So do you want to try the week of the 18th?
Are there days that are better for you guys?
Doesn't matter to me.
That week would be Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday.
Tuesday or Thursday work best for me. Either day, I have nothing.
19th or 21st.
Yeah. I'm tied up on the 19th and 21st. During the day on the 19th, I guess I would.
When typically do we start and when do we typically end?
We usually start around 7:30. And we typically end sometime around 2 or 3 o'clock, depending on how it goes.
The 19th, I'd be available.
Does the 19th work for you guys?
So the 19th it is.
Good.
So I will send out, do you folks, do you want me to have Katie send it out to the entire board?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So when I put the schedule together, I'll have it sent to the entire board. And it will give specific times for each location, so people can join at various times.
Where do we typically start? Here?
I mix it up. Sometimes we started at Line and worked down, other times we started in Lyman and kind of worked our way up. Do you have a preference? It usually just works better from one end or the other, because to start in Waterboro,
I
sometimes
don't-
we're circling backwards.
Start with the furthest one away first, so that I can make the.
Furthest from whom?
I think the shortest distance is to do the high school, do Lyman and do the loop that we did. On the bus, it's 53 miles.
We can.
I think that's the shortest distance.
The hard part about that is starting at 7:30 just conflicts with the high school drop off. So it becomes a little chaotic to be on this campus at that hour.
So maybe start at Lyman. And do the thing, right? You start at Lyman and do the exact same loop.
That's closest to Kennybunk is what he's saying.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I don't care where you start, but I'm just saying that is. When we were setting up the schedule for our trip, we were just trying to find the most efficient route.
I think the last time I'd have to look, I think the last time we started at Lyman and went that direction.
Stay tuned.
So it would be 7:30 we start calling?
Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
but still. I would
So
like-
let me get that out to you and that gives me what I need. I'm not gonna concentrate on the summer projects. I just wanted you to have this listing that we had done before. When we do tours, I'll be very, give you a different listing that includes this plus more. And then also be prepared, and same for board members. What do you want to see? What's important to you and what do you want to learn and know in that day? Let's make it as beneficial as possible.
Playground. I'm just kidding.
I wanna take a serious look in Lyman at they're always talking about getting rid of those big trees in front. Adding some parking space.
The trees are gone.
I have not been there all summer. They're gone.
Okay, it won't be parking.
It's not parking.
What are we gonna do? Make fountains and stuff? Little guy with water coming out of it.
Yeah. I got a big, huge fountain out there.
Gonna look just like you, isn't it?
You nailed it. Update on vendor supplies and contracts. I'm really not gonna spend much time on this. I put this on every year as a standing item for the first meeting of the year, just because I don't know if there's new committee members, whether they understand how we select vendors, how we purchase stuff. where all of you have been on the committee, you know it. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't want to be repetitive. I think you got a pretty good handle on roofing and consultants and where we have consultants that don't conflict and have a conflict of interest with vendors that we're bidding. When do we bid? When don't we bid? That would be the discussion if we had some new members. I'm happy to expand on any of those that you want to either tonight or later, but that's why this agenda item has been put on for the first of the year, is to be able to explain that and be transparent about it. I don't think or feel I need to spend a lot of time with that, but happy to hear from you and what you feel you need me to explain.
There's only 4 of us on the committee.
No.
Oh,
There's a 5th. And I don't know if anyone from Waterboro is gonna fill in or. I think they were
There,
talking
there
about
is
it.
a new Waterboro, that just needs to go through orientation and everything, so, she'll be assigned to the committee.
Yes.
So you'll have,
Nadine Malloy.
so that will give you a 5th person and then, I'll fill in when I can. So.
ESSER. So, just as a refresher, ESSER 1 is long since gone. ESSER 2 expires September 30th, 2023, so another month from now. We are close to having spent everything out of ESSER 2 that was projected. We will have a little bit of money, that probably we're gonna have a hard time with some professional development money. But out of the almost $6 million, almost all of that is gonna be very well spent, finished, and declared and really spent out through the projects that we had applied for, I guess, coming up on almost 2.5 or 3 years ago now. So I just wanted to report to you on that. ESSER 3 is the one that expires in September of 2024. Kyle, Steve and I met just a couple weeks ago on this, in fact, to really game plan out the next 13 months of this particular grant money. This is more significant. It's about 3.5 million, almost 3.6 million. The projects are defined. ESSER 3, remember, is much more specific. On the website is a copy of our application. On the website is our use of funds. All other requirements under ESSER. At the last board meeting, I described some proposed changes that are out for public comment and input right now in order to rearrange some money, not new projects, but rearrangement of money in current projects. I would say that the things I can tell you right now that are complete is there was money for windows at Waterboro Elementary in the West Building. That is almost all done and spent. There was some money for some nursing, which is all spent. There's some money for some other things that's about half spent. And then the 2 major projects from an operational standpoint is the new storage building and a new high school modular building. And I talked about the modular building at the board meeting and why we're shifting some money to that project. The storage facility, we've got it all planned. We've got the documentation. We've got the RFP all written. It's a matter of right now, we're trying to determine when we're gonna send that out to bid. Our gut is telling us that we're probably gonna send it out around December. And the reason for that is I can't find a place right now. I kind of like to bid it this fall, but I'm not sure I can, and bid it in the fall so I can lock in some pricing. But if I do that, I gotta find a place to store the steel for the building. And I don't want to pay in the RFP to have someone store it. But I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that right now steel is pretty good pricing compared to what it's been. So I want to try to capture that within the next few months and really hit the street probably around November and December with bids due after that.
Would you consider private residence as a storage facility? No.
I consider as long as we can get insurance and other binding information that I would get from any other commercial property. So I'm kind of exploring that. If I can find location for it, I might consider that and really bid this. I'm just a little concerned that right now the steel pricing is pretty darn good. If I could lock that in, but a vendor's gonna want some commitment from me that one, I'm willing to pay for the steel while I can get the pricing and pay for it, but I gotta store it and insure it somewhere until spring. So that's kind of where we are with the storage building. The modular building is fairly well on its way in a design, and I would say about halfway on the RFP process of writing the RFP. I have to wait until this comment period and public input period is over. And then once that occurs, then we'll be hitting the street pretty soon on the high school modular building. And getting that off the ground, which is much more complex than the storage building.
What do you have for an anticipated completion date on that?
That's gonna run up against the end of summer next year. So that's one that we gotta get the RFP out. We gotta get people, the winning bid locked in. Because there's a bunch of different vendors we need. We need earthwork. We need the company that's gonna provide the modular. We need fire, sprinkler system work. So there's probably 3 or 4 main vendors outside of just the construction of the facility. That we're gonna need to coordinate and have logistics on. There's some others that are more educationally based requirements. Or projects that are approved in this grant that Kyle and Steve and I are working on and have plans for most of that right now. As to how that money is gonna be spent, and the ones that we don't, that we're still discussing. I anticipate within probably the next month or 6 weeks, we're gonna have a much more defined plan than what we have tonight for the remainder of that. So my goal is that by fall, we have a real good plan in place for those areas that we don't already have a plan. So that we're not scrambling at the last minute, which some schools are doing right now to try to see how they're gonna spend this money. So that's where we are on concern. Or even yes or 2. I don't know if you wanna table the rest, you want me to go, it's 10 minutes of 7.
Anything you need to talk about?
Not that I need to, no, I've gone through and prioritized.
Table it so we have time to discuss it. So our next meeting is
The 13th of September.
13th of September.
6 o'clock.
Right here.
Business, I just told you.
That only works for one excuse.
It's 1 week, it's a whole week.
Thank you, folks.
Well, thank you, Colin.
We're adjourned.